Hey guys, it's Danae, and I'm back here with the Philadelphia Sunday Sun every Sunday at 2 p.m. And I'm here with Moni. You might recognize her because she's a fellow Sun, what is it, like associate, whatever.
Colleague, whatever.
Yeah, colleague. She works for the Sun as well. And funny enough, me and her actually met on the set of a play like years ago. So this is really a full circle moment for me. And so today we're going to be talking about her indoor gardening, which I'm so excited about because I've talked about this on the show before, but I love plants, I love nature, and anything like this that's sustainable and inventive is so important to me. And I'm even more excited because Ida just happened. And so I feel that indoor gardening is even more important than we might have thought it was last week. And as you see, I'm wearing a sweater. It's a little cold outside. It's getting chilly. We've entered September, so it's about to be fall. Again, meaning that indoor gardening really I'm sure you can do it year round, but as of right now, with the weather changing, doing it indoors might be the way to go. So Moni, without further ado, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself and then we'll get into the interview.
Okay, absolutely. Well, first, and I want to thank you for having me on. It's such an honor. I watch a Millennial Voice every week. I'm a fan.
Do you
I'm a
really?
stand too. I'm a fan in the stand, so that's good.
Wow, thank you so
I'm so
much.
happy to be here, and like I'm just looking at my hair too because I feel like Florence from the Jeffersons. If you ever watched it, Google everybody.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But we're both sisters with natural hair, so we know the shrinkage thing is real. But I love it though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so indoor gardening. Now, what was your first question, Danae? Because I want to make sure that I answer that.
No, I didn't ask anything at all. I was just
I
basically
just,
talking about the sustainability aspect to it, how the weather's changing, climate change, and
hmm
how a drive behind doing indoor gardening might be the way of the future. So I would just love if I know about how you started, but if you could just share a little bit about how you started with indoor gardening, and then we can kind of expand on that. That would be great.
Absolutely. Well, I just started just because of the nerd in me. Like back in third grade, like even though it wasn't part of the curriculum, your teacher would take a styrofoam cup, put some seeds in there, and some little green things come out, and that was it. You're like, oh, that's so cool. You didn't see it through to completion, but you got the basic concept. So
Okay.
I carried that into adulthood. Like this styrofoam cup, it's not good for the environment. Put some soil in here,
Yeah.
put something in there, and just watch it grow a little bit. But then it became second nature. I'm like, I'm throwing this food away. I'm throwing away these scallions. They have roots on it. I can regrow it. It's
Yeah.
like waste not, want not. I'm from a generation where you don't waste anything. Like you just
Right.
don't.
Right.
It's just crazy. I mean, but nowadays people just throw stuff away. Like, it's just like
It's
we
nothing.
don't really value food and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So I just started doing it regularly and always keeping it on my countertop because it also looks pretty. Like to grow, I love growing scallions because they're the easiest. And my favorite thing to grow is kale. Kale
I
grows
saw your
all
thing. Hell yeah.
Kale, yeah, man, kale, yeah. You could grow that puppy inside all year long. But now I do like outdoor gardening, but this is the thing, and I think people, well, first of all, with outdoor gardening, you can only do that when it's warm, for the most part. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're kind of depressed because fall is coming around. You get your nice fall crop, and then you kind of,
It kind of
but
dies off. Yeah.
absolutely. But then the pandemic happened,
Mm,
right? When you tell people you do indoor gardening, they make a lot of assumptions about you. Oh, she must be single. Those single people don't got nothing else to do. Plant ladies or pet lady. But it
yeah.
really wasn't about that. It's about you should be able to sustain yourself on some level. And
Right.
it's not to say that if you indoor garden, you're going to have a bounty full of food that's going to last you forever. But you might have something so you can get by for now in case something happens. And
Right.
then with the pandemic, when we went to the store, there's no eggs, there's no milk, there's no bread, like there's no meat, there's just not anything.
Mm,
They're telling you don't go outside.
right.
Okay, you've lost your job.
Mm,
You can't use a home delivery grocery service. So now those things that we laughed at people at, we're like, wait a minute, man, I really wish I had some scallions or something. Or I wish I had kale growing or something.
yeah.
And so indoor gardening, the big plus to it is that you can do that all year round. It's not weather dependent and you do not need a big space.
Right. So let's talk about sustainability again, right? So obviously, indoor gardening is considered really sustainable. And again, not in just terms of money, but in terms of environment as well, you know, with climate change and all these uncertain things going on in the world, you really just never know. So
Mhm.
and I'm happy that you brought up the issue of food waste, because in this country alone, and I talked about this on my last episode with my mom, 30 to 40% of the food in this country is wasted. And so I watched your recent video for your 1 year anniversary about the scallions, and I thought that was amazing that you were able to take the scallion that might have been sitting in the back of your refrigerator and replant it. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about that and about how important it is that we are conserving our own food and kind of finding a means to take bad food and maybe create something else or give it new life. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. And we're going to be getting into the show. I'm going to dig into that a little bit. Composting. A lot of the stuff that we throw out, we could compost.
Yeah.
And when I say composting, for anyone who hears the term but doesn't really like know what it is,
Mm-hmm.
basically you're letting that food break down and it turns into like a soil to
Yeah.
nutrients that you can plant food.
Mm.
So you don't have to always run to your garden store to get some soil.
Yeah.
You know, and it gives you the most minerals because it's very mineral rich because it's decomposing food. And
Yeah.
like we throw away eggshells all the time, but believe it or not, you can also compost eggshells, like because there's like calcium in it. You
Mm.
know, so it takes a while for it to break down, but it's good. And you'd be surprised. People who have these tiny apartments, and they're finding creative ways to compost
Yeah.
so they can have their own soil. Now, somebody might think, why in the world would you want to take time to do something like that? Well, let me tell you something. And it really kind of, I hate to use the word scared because I don't like the word fear and I don't live by fear.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic happened, do you know how scary it is to go to the garden store and they're like, we don't have any seeds?
Yeah.
We don't have any soil. That's your last line of defense
That's
if you need
yeah.
food.
And
That freaked me out a little bit, you
and
know?
it's interesting you say that too. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm a huge fan of the show A Different World. And one of the characters on there, Freddie, I remember this specific episode where they were kind of talking about different things and making a time capsule. And so she said she put a piece of or some corn kernels in the time capsule because basically it was like, you know, if it comes to a point where we have nothing, at least we have seeds.
Mm.
And so or the kernels, you know, to make corn.
Mm.
It's, you know, the Hopi, I think it's the Hopi Indian symbol of growth or something along those lines, right? Or life. And so it really struck me when you said that, because how scary is that? You
Mm-hmm.
know, if we don't have the most basic thing, then we have nothing.
That is so true. And I think God bless 2020. 2020 was the year.
Yeah.
Not for the only for the obvious reason because of the pandemic, but because people had to look inward
Mm.
because you couldn't validate yourself by your job anymore, or you know, you really had everybody was human. It didn't matter if you had money because there was nothing in the store.
Right.
It made no difference then, you know.
Yeah.
And so you also had to be creative. Like,
Mm.
how can I? And I think we've learned that you always have to be prepared. Imagine how panicked you are if you're went through what we just went through and you're just starting to learn how to indoor garden.
Right.
Because you know, with kale, it takes about 60 to 75 days, you
Wow.
know, to get some. Now you can eat them in microgreen form, I believe, like just like you go to the store and get microgreens. But if you want like some nice, you know, fluffy kale, it takes about 60 to 75 days. And they're not going to be as big as the kale, like when you sit it outside in the sun, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're definitely big enough. And you can look at some of the videos where you get have salad at your leisure and, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we just had to look inward and those things that we thought would never happen.
Mm.
Now we have to, we think about being self-reliant
Right.
and you have to trust yourself now because some people don't grow because they're so used to depending on the mass food system that they don't trust themselves to grow anything. They think, oh my God, I'm going to get sick, or, you know, there's just that fear. And I had that fear too when I started really, because I only grow what I can eat.
Yeah. And I
You
want
know,
to talk about that as well.
yeah, yeah. Like some people have these huge, huge. My thing is, if it go down, I want something to eat. So I keep an aloe vera plant. You know, that's good for a lot of things. I don't know. When I look around, I like to eat a lot anyway. Obviously, you can see I got a little meat on here. You know, so I'm like to wake up and I want to see plants of food. I like that.
Mm.
I like that.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. So there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
So because you touched on several points that I wanted to kind of go over. So just bringing it back to super current events, right? Hurricane Ida. So last year, when people were really talking about foraging and kind of cultivating their own fruits and vegetables and plants and things like that, a lot of people were talking about urban farming and gardening outside or doing balcony farming. Now we're hit with Ida, which kind of just became this huge thing that we didn't expect it to be. And so these crops that people are planting outside are now demolished. And so for you, though, you kind of were ahead of the curve, and you decided to do this indoor gardening, right? And so for other people who are interested in maybe taking some of those plants that they were keeping outside because they thought that that was the only or best way, what advice would you give somebody who's interested in indoor gardening and might be scared or might not understand what that looks like? Because I know you had a learning curve yourself when you started. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My learning curve was like, I need to know that I'm not going to get sick. Because remember, I was even one of those people, I don't trust myself growing food because we get it from the store, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that it's going to be okay. You're not going to die if you eat a homegrown scallion. Like, I'm good. I've been doing this for a long time now. Yeah. And so, indoor gardening, don't be intimidated by the unknown. Okay. So, because there's a lot of information on the internet too. But people tend to learn with who they can trust, because also on the internet, I see a lot of wrong things. And I'm like, oh my Jesus.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different conversation, especially when it comes to fermenting and stuff, different conversation. But when you go to your local store or whatever, get you some garden lamps. Like they're probably like $10 or probably even less. And you can like a clamp garden light. You could just hang it anywhere, like under your cabinet. As you can see in my videos, I hung mine right under my kitchen cabinet. Yep. And I took a couple of dining room chairs and I put that in my kitchen, and I put a clamp light on top of each chair. And so when my kale is getting big, I just put that pot, because once the kale or anything you're growing gets big, you have to put it in a bigger pot. So then I just put that big pot on my dining room chair in the kitchen, and I just turn the light on it, and it just grows like that. Yeah. And when it gets too big and it's touching the light, that's cool. I'm gonna just harvest it and eat some salad.
Awesome.
So lamp lights, because you can't grow anything without lights. That's like your artificial sunlight.
Right.
Okay. You can get those under $10.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So you talked a little bit about people's prejudgments on folks who decide to do some indoor gardening. So I'm curious to know, what was the reaction that you got when you told people that you were friends with or your family or whatever that you were interested in indoor gardening? Were they kind of judgmental as well?
Well, this is what friends will never tell you. I think the automatic thought is, oh, that's just so cute thing that single people do. As the person saying, you must be single. Yeah. But truth be told, I also, it's funny, I used to date someone who was going into law school. He gardens. I mean, he doesn't garden indoors, but that's what his family does. He's from the Midwest, though. Okay. And I think Midwest and Southern folks, I think they're a little bit more in touch with their agricultural roots.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like second nature to have a garden or something.
Right. Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then I will also see older folks. They always had something growing in the most creative ways.
My grandpa.
Like even if they had a backyard, a small backyard, I don't know why they did this, but they were like tying up their collard greens up against the fence. And it was always second nature to me, is to have something growing. But for me, I just choose to do it indoors. And because you also have to think about, most people don't live in spaces where they have huge backyards. Right. Most people are living in like a compacted living style, like a high-rise apartment or a row home that doesn't have a backyard. Yeah. And they need to know that they can be self-sufficient too in food, as much as they can be, right. If need be. So there's nothing to fear with indoor gardening, but just make sure you get those indoor garden lamps, because those babies are going to need sunlight.
Right. So this is the second or third time that you brought up small spaces. So let's just touch on that for a second. Tell me more about that. I know you said the garden light is what's needed for a smaller space, but tell me more about what you need for a very compact living space, because I live in a very small living space, a very small Brooklyn apartment. So I have a very small living space. So I'm kind of curious to know, how can I facilitate an area that's really great for growth for plants, because you're inspiring me to start indoor gardening. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Now, do you have windows in your apartment, or is it just all walls, or how does?
So I have a sliding door in my bedroom, but my living space, and I need to move so bad, but my living space is no windows at all. It's actually pretty depressing. So that's
You have
my,
a kitchen cabinet.
yes.
Okay. So is there a place on the kitchen cabinet where you could just clamp right to the bottom of it?
Yeah.
Okay. And under that, you have the counter, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So you don't need a whole bunch of space then.
No.
Wow. So
And do
why
you
do
have?
you go ahead?
No, and I'm looking at your chair too. So I'm not sure if you have company or not, or because I looked at like my chairs. I'm like, do I really need 4 or 5 chairs? I mean,
Oh, I'm at my parents' house right now.
oh, okay. You might have to ask mom if you can borrow that and take it back to New York. But that chair there, it looks like something that's definitely high enough. You just take your little
Okay.
lamp it on there, and once you transplant your food into that soil and it's grown big, you can put that pot right on the chair and just turn down your lamp, and that'll be the light shine on it, and it'll just grow.
Wow.
And you'll just get your bottom water on and all that fun stuff. And
Yeah. So why do you think that there's such a huge misconception about the space needed to grow our own food? Because I would imagine that you would need a whole bunch of space, but you're saying that that's not the case.
that's not the case. Now, of course, you might be a little limited as to what you can do. I
Mhm.
mean, you're not going to have a whole bountiful harvest,
Right, right.
and that's another reason why I grow kale, because kale has a lot of nutrition. So
Mhm.
that's something that can get you by. Like if you can't go to the store and get food that day or something, you know what I mean? So I'm sorry. What did you just ask me? Because I lost my train of thought there.
No, it's okay. So I was talking about the space and why there's this preconceived notion that you have to have a huge space to grow plants.
Okay. Well, number one, we always, when you look on television, you see anything with plants or gardening, you see people with these beautiful homes and they're spacious, which is great, but most people don't have that kind of space. So you have to get creative.
Yeah.
And you have to use it. You have to think, before we build all these fancy homes and all this fun stuff, humans have been planting and gardening and doing what they have to do for centuries.
Right.
So where there's a will, there's a way. And if there's one thing that indoor gardening teaches you, it's the skill of auditing your space. It's the skill of looking at something and say, hey, that could be used for my gardening. Like that eggshell, that's not just an eggshell. I could use that for something. You know what I mean?
That's such a
So
good
it makes you become creative. And I think last year a lot of people became very creative.
Yeah. I mean, so
uh,
it sounds like you're a really resilient person.
yeah, and then I'm a nerd too. I'm a nerd.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I just think when people look at gardening, it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Even when I look at these shows, like when I see people with all this stuff growing, I'm like, geez, that looks like a lot of work, because outdoor gardening is a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
very rewarding, it's very calming, but it takes patience,
Right.
because you just don't put the seed in and it grows overnight.
Mm.
And sometimes I also think people don't see the value in something that they can't have right away.
Right.
Gardening, whether it's indoor or outdoor, it makes you plan, because you have to take time for the seed to grow.
And
So,
I love how many metaphors that you're consciously, subconsciously, and advertently dropping right now as you talk about plants. So I'm like listening to you and getting inspired just about other things that don't even have to do with plants, being patient and waiting for like things to bear fruit, and it sounds so cliche, but it's very real. Obviously, we're talking about harvesting and cultivating plants, but it also applies to real life as well.
yes. And you know what? That's so true. Everything goes through its life cycle, and yeah, I do think gardening, whether it be outdoor or indoor gardening, it definitely it develops character in a way,
Yeah.
and it makes you respect the value of having things and not taking it for granted.
Mm.
I'm obsessed with, like I said earlier, I'm obsessed with not throwing away food. That's just like crazy to me. Like, that's just, especially food that could have been replanted or growed, or I'm sorry, is that bad English? Growed or grew? Yeah. But
This is a real show, so whatever you
yeah.
said, they'll figure out what you meant.
So I think there's a lot of reasons people are intimidated, and I think the other reason is not only because you can't get instant gratification from gardening, because you have to wait for it to grow, but I think they might think, oh wow, that just costs too much. I can barely survive to eat get by eating now, let alone using my extra spare change to buy seeds and then grow something. But when you don't have access to your own food, you're either going to pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, that's the reality,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
believe it or not, it's not that seeds are not that expensive
Yeah.
at all. And I'm not just saying that because sometimes people say things aren't expensive, and then you look in the store like, oh my God, it's expensive. Seeds are not expensive. And if you can get organic seeds aren't that expensive either. Because when you're going in a store to buy seeds, they'll say on there, like, how it's been grown. So if you don't like seeds with pesticides, that's widely available and it's not expensive.
So where can
So
people find some seeds?
go to your local garden store.
Okay.
And they not only will they have seeds, they'll have different types of soil. They'll have the popular commercial brand soil. They have the organic soil. So whatever things you like to prefer to grow with, they'll have it. And just so if when you're watching this, to all the Millennial Voice viewers, when you go to this to your garden store, there's going to be tons of soil. You know what I mean? I always say go organic. Organic. I'm not a fan of pesticides and anything. I'm just not a fan. And I'm I don't want to get political, but I'm not a fan of GMO either. So it's not to say that I don't have GMO in my kitchen, because at the end of the day, when you buy stuff, sometimes you don't have any control over that.
Right.
But if I have a choice and there's an option, of course I will go with non-GMO and organic as much as possible.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's not expensive. So whatever that barrier is that you need a lot of space, you don't. If the barrier is I need a humongous backyard or a backyard, you don't. If the barrier is this is going to be a little bit too expensive, no. Invest in some flower pots. Even if you don't know what you're going to use them for yet, just have them on backup.
That's such a good idea to just have them, because
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a plant as a gift or something like that, and my plant is continuing to grow and I need to repot it and I have no pots. So that's a really good idea.
Yep. And I do something called bottom watering. So for someone who's watching, when you pour water, when you water your plant from the top, you run the risk of it being too moist, and then you'll get gnats, fungus gnats, and it gets a little crazy.
That's what causes gnats.
Yeah.
Wow.
Moisture, extra moisture in the soil. Yeah. That's one thing. That's, but then sometimes you have bugs that they just like the vegetables, it's good. But when you're doing indoor gardening, you don't want all that in there. So, and this is another thing. If you're going from outdoor to indoor gardening, don't use the soil from outside and bring that inside, because then you're bringing in all those insect eggs and all that. Just start with a fresh batch of soil that you use strictly for indoor. Okay. So, where was I at? Because I could talk about. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You were just talking about space. You were talking about you don't have to have a backyard. You were talking about how it's relatively cost effective, or it can be.
Yes, and the bottom watering.
Having pots, bottom watering.
Right. So bottom watering is when you put your pot in the side of a little tray and just pour a little bit of water in it. And the soil, and this is another thing, make sure you buy pots that have drainage holes at the bottom. Because whenever you're talking about watering, like, it has to drain.
Yeah.
So that's important, because I go places and I actually see pots that have no drainage holes at the bottom. So I'm like, what's going on here? And you don't want that. And it's a pain in the butt to try to drill the holes in.
Yeah.
So they must have drainage holes. So when you're bottom watering, you just put your pot inside of that little tray or whatever you got. Put the water inside the tray, and the soil will absorb it from the bottom.
Right.
And you'll know that the plant has enough water when it's gone. If the tray is empty, you know what I mean?
And you talked about that in your last video, which announced the 1-year anniversary of your indoor gardening show. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you.
But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about your show, the impetus behind it. And also, I know you used to work in filmmaking. Like I said, you seem like a really resilient person. So, you were filmmaking, you've done some acting as well, and you're a self-proclaimed nerd. So tell me a little bit about how it feels to be able to take a previous or current passion, that is filmmaking, and kind of put it into your passion today and bring it to a platform like The Sun. How does that feel for you?
Oh, it feels great. And I just want to clarify one thing. With that bottom watering thing, when using what you got, I would take how sometimes you get a takeout tray from food. It's like that black takeout tray. Yeah, I would use that as a tray to put the pot in.
Yeah.
instead of just throwing that little non-recyclable thing away.
Yeah.
So I just washed it out, and I actually I was growing some scallions, and so I put the pot of scallions in that, and then I used that takeout tray to put the water in. So this is what I'm saying, like, okay, so now fast forward. I've been filmmaking before filmmaking, being a self-sufficient filmmaker was a thing. Because, back in the day, you needed a nice little camera, like you needed because the camera phones weren't, like they are today. So back then, I had like a little digital camera. Do you remember those?
Mhm.
It wasn't a phone, just like a little digital camera. Everybody thought that was the bomb.com because they had one of those instead of those little Polaroid things or whatever. So I would actually use that and just film everything, film food. I went down to New Orleans, excuse me, 5 years after Katrina. And I just went to the lower nine and they took me around. And I just saw that a lot of things, that nothing had changed. Literally cars still turned over in the driveway. It's like, it was just.
And how long after was
That
this?
was in 2010. So it was 5 years after Katrina. And that section,
wow,
nothing had been done. And so I just would document and film stuff like that, and sometimes put it online. But my thing was just do it, because if you're always waiting for the perfect time where I'm going to have enough money to get this awesome camera, and you'll never do it. But I felt that filmmaking is really about storytelling.
yeah.
If you don't know how to tell a story as a filmmaker, your camera means nothing. You just got stuff on film or stuff on a digital canvas. So for me, and you're a fellow creative as well, because I know you do the bookmarkers, which I really like.
Yeah, thank you.
Creators always evolve. I've never met a creator where they just do that one thing. They're constantly, because that's our spirit and our soul. We can't really thrive unless we're creating all the time. Mm-hmm. So, and that's probably why I like indoor gardening, because like you're creating something. Yeah. If that plant or if that thing is not growing right, you have to figure it out how to make it grow right. You know what I mean? Right. And also make it pretty. Sometimes I'll just tend to my food that's growing because it doesn't look pretty enough, and I just want to make sure, it's about, the visuals, the presentation. Yeah. So, so, and prior to doing film, I was a DJ. I used to be a well-known DJ. Wow. I used to spin in the clubs.
So you had so many lives.
Too many lives, yeah. Like I used to have a show called Cool Like That on WKDU. So I had like Jill Scott in the studio. I had Essence Magazine in the studio. Like I just had like all these. It was just really fun. And I was also a poet. So I opened for John Legend before he became John Legend. Like he was actually a guest on my show too. So it's like, but I always think the creator has a purpose for why you do things. That was just something to start out what my greater purpose was, because I couldn't have gotten here without all of that. Yeah. And then I became a DJ columnist, for a major paper here in Philadelphia. And then I started doing PR because people saw how good it was. Because I couldn't afford, this is another thing about necessity being the mother of invention. I thought it was a big deal that I was getting a lot of celebrities on my college show, but I couldn't afford a publicist. So I was like, I'm going to be my own publicist. Mm. So I had my own little public relations company sending out my own press releases. It was not shy to say, yep, it's me. I'm the point of contact, And it worked very well for me. I ended up getting on the cover of a major newspaper here in Philadelphia. I'm just not saying their name because I'm not into like free advertisement. And that's something. That's the PR.
That's not good. It's not good.
Because if it was the other way around, they'd be charging me for it. You know what I mean? But it was a major white. The one we pick up and read every day, probably.
Okay. That says enough for me.
Yeah. So people saw how well it worked for me, and they were like, can you do PR for me? So I did public relations for Kendra the Family's Old. I'm not sure. Yeah. For a couple of years, man. I was
you say it so humbly. It's like, I did this. Like it's whatever. But I gardened.
Yeah. An author named Leslie Usdell Banks. May she rest in peace. She had a Vampire Hunter series, which I think became option to become a film. She also wrote one of the books for Soul Food. Remember the show Soul Food? That was a long time ago. My God, the 2000s. Oh God!
No, we're in 2021. It's about to be 2022. God. I'm still stuck on like 2019, beginning of 2020. So
just running down. I'm like, wow. Okay. Well, I look good. Time has been long, but I look
She
very
said,
good
I
because
look
it's all
good,
fresh.
honey. She said, I'm fresh. I'm fresher than the vegetables I grow.
Yeah. So, and so I think all of that the roads just led me to doing something that the world needs.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
world needs it.
And so I love that you're, tying all these things in, because I'm the type of person where I'm always looking for how something that I've done in the past kind of had an effect on my future. And so just, thinking about all these things that you've done, the poetry, the PR, the radio show, like everything that you've done in the past, how do you think that it's prepared you for this moment? How do you think all those things tie into being uh somebody who is great at indoor gardening?
Oh, it makes you bold. Being out there makes you bold.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you fearless. You
Yeah.
don't care if anybody says your idea is stupid. Could care less. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not even going to ask your opinion. But that came from getting a tough skin from being out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And being out there, that means you have to accept some criticism along with people loving what you do.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of like just got used to the whole. And plus, as a woman, as a Black woman, I'm a little bit more resilient because we always hear the word no, or you can't.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, why can't I? Everybody else is doing it. What's so special about me that I can't
Right.
do?
That you
You
can't.
know.
Yeah.
So I've always been a little bit resilient, and like when I hear the word no, that means you told me yes. You done fired me up. So if you don't want me to do something,
Right.
don't say no, because then
Say
you
no.
done set me off, because now I'm gonna do it.
I'm just wondering, what's your sign?
I am a Libra.
Okay, I don't really know too much about signs, but I know I'm an Aries, and I know we're very impulsive people who kind of like when we have this idea, we kind of have to do it. So I was like, I wonder if she's an Aries too. But clearly, I don't know much about signs because I thought you were a fire sign as well.
Fire sign. Oh yeah, yeah. And I hate waiting. Like my thing is do it now.
Yeah.
Just do it. I just hate the way. And people always make you feel like as a woman you got to get permission. I don't got to get permission for.
Yeah.
I just don't have to do it. I just censor myself there.
I
So
love that sensor. Cute. Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about indoor gardening. So you
okay.
talked about the benefits and how great it's been for you and just in general, right? But what are some of the ills that people could look out for or should be looking out for when they decide to indoor garden? Because I'm sure it comes with some hardships as well.
Well, most people who indoor garden to eat,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna ultimately jump into fermenting because
Okay.
you want to preserve some of that stuff, and that's another reason why folks indoor garden, because you want to put away food for the times where, God forbid, you don't have any electricity, you don't have any gas, right? There comes a certain time once you get to the eating part that you have to mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
Specifically when people put things in jar or pressure canning, because some people grow their own food to pressure can. My God, on God, follow each and every instruction on that, because you could get yourself very sick. You know, yeah, because once you start indoor gardening, you're going to start doing that. Like when I'm making pickles, when you make your pickles at home, even though it only takes about 2 days, right? That's a form of fermenting, because you're putting it in and you're just letting it
It's really
ferment.
acidic, right?
Huh?
It's really acidic.
Right.
When you
Yeah,
ferment
it's
stuff,
acidic.
it's really acidic. Yeah.
Right. And then you're going to get really jiggy with it. And then you want to start canning. And canning is like when you preserve meats and when you preserve stuff for like a year or whatever. And online, I think it's one of our government agencies. They actually have the guidelines on how to pressure can. Because like and I don't want to freak people out, and you don't but I just want to let you know this, because when you look on the internet, you see things done wrong a lot. When you don't can properly, pressure can at home properly, you can get something called botulism, which is like very deadly. Like it's even airborne, so it's not in that jar. Just so you open it, like that's why I say if you haven't done it properly, or if there's a bulge in it, or even in a can, just throw that whole thing away, because you don't want that. And then when you go to the hospital, it's going to be a situation, because they have to treat you like an infectious person, because you are,
Yeah.
So, and I'm just saying that just to, even though this is about indoor gardening, but I know people will affirm it. And I know on the internet, there's also a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know to always do your research when it comes to indoor gardening. But indoor gardening itself is safe.
Okay.
I don't have any problems. I've never had, huh?
It's just the after that could
Yeah, the after.
be harmful.
Right. And even with my things that I grow indoor, which is mostly kale, because that's just my favorite go-to, make sure you wash your vegetables just as if you would if you brought it from the store. And you don't have to spend $3 or $4 for these vegetable washers in the store. I just put my things in a bowl of vinegar water, shake it up real good, and then rinse it off with filtered water, and that's it. Vinegar is very good for cleaning stuff.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of little dirt or settlement, like say on your cucumbers or whatever, just take that vinegar water, take a little brush, like a little vegetable brush, and just scrub it off. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And you'll be okay.
Okay. I'm learning so much. So when I was on your website, I saw that you have a sector called What's the Deal, which I think that's the cutest thing in the world. That's a space where your subscribers, your viewers, your followers, whatever, they can ask you some questions. So what are some common questions that you get about what you do?
To be honest, I more so get statements than questions.
Oh.
Yes, like some people just say like fantastic. I got a message from someone from St. Kitts, and it's weird because I shouldn't say it's weird, but people from the islands like the show.
It's amazing because you never know who's watching you.
Yeah, and I'm flattered by that because I know in the Caribbean, because of the climate, they know about growing it and stuff like that. So for them to like it and just watch it for enjoyment, I think that's awesome. And because the climate is pretty good down there, I'm not sure if they do a lot of indoor gardening, which might be why they're interested, because the climate, they could just grow outdoors,
Right, whatever they want.
forever. Yeah. So, and I just think, so most of the comments is just feedback or like that looked good what you did. I also made kimchi because I like to take the stuff that I grow indoors and also show people how to make some nice recipes. Kimchi is going to cost you a pretty penny in the store.
Yeah.
And so, but you could do that at home. You got cabbage.
Yeah.
You got carrots. You got stuff. You can make it all on your own. So most of the feedback is just statements. But I got a comment. Someone actually gave me a testimonial. She's from the Haitian community, and she said her friend watches my show and learned how to grow tomatoes, even though I never did a tutorial on tomatoes. But she learned how to work the soil, and she got the basic concept where she learned to grow anything she wants.
Wow.
And that's also the beauty of indoor gardening. Once you get the basic concept, you'll kind of know how to grow different things.
So what does that moment feel like for you? Because I'm sure when you first started doing this, it was just some sort of like self-gratifying thing that you were kind of doing during COVID and you just liked it for the purpose of doing it. But now that you're helping people, how does that feel for you? Because it's become like kind of a shift of something that you're doing just to put out there and hoping people seeing it. Hoping people are seeing it to now knowing for a fact that people are seeing it. And not only are they seeing it, but they're utilizing these tips to enhance their own lives. How does that feel for you?
It feels great. And I'm still in shock because even on Instagram and all that, I don't have a lot of followers. So I've done, but it just makes me, I'm just flabbergasted. I'm still in shock because if you'd have told me that my life's work would be showing people how to indoor garden and that I would have a show indoor gardening and that major news platform in Philadelphia, Sunday Sun, says, "Hey, I want you to bring some of that over here, some of these videos, and post on our platform." I would have never dreamt that. I would have never thought that in a million years. Like I just always thought indoor gardening is something you just do for yourself, and you have food and you have kale, and that's pretty cute. But the Lord works in mysterious ways. I have my purpose, my mission, and my passion. And sometimes the Lord shows you what your mission and your purpose is in the most
roundabout way.
Most weird roundabout ways.
Yeah, I can really attest to that.
Yeah, but I want to give a shout out to all the farmers out there too.
Yeah.
Because and I want to address this, and I know we're on a time limit here. Be reasonable. Some people take the sufficiency thing a little bit too far. So
They become selfish.
yeah, like it's just you're not going to be able to have I don't need the food system anymore. I'm growing my food indoors. Yes, you do.
Mm,
If I were to sit here and tell you I'm not going to go to a restaurant, I'm lying. I'm going to go to a restaurant.
yeah.
I like the convenience of going to the store and buying my vegetables and more importantly, that's keeping farmers in business.
Mm,
So I don't want people to think being self-sufficient and growing indoors or even growing your own food outdoors means don't go to the supermarket and buy food.
yeah.
Yes, go to the supermarket and buy food because no one person can be self-sufficient with everything that they need.
Right.
Still continue to go to the market and get stuff because it also helps farmers. How many times have you gone to the supermarket? You're seeing items from local farmers. It says local.
Yeah.
So there's an economy to this as well. Support your local farmers. They
Yeah.
need it. We need each other. Even farmers will tell you they might knock on their neighbor's door or go a half a mile down the street to their neighbor's door. It's like, hey, can I have some of this? Have some of that?
Mm,
It's just normal. It's just the way. And sometimes when you're growing things, no matter how great you are about outdoor indoor gardening, sometimes things don't go right.
right.
I hate to say it. Oh my God, I hate to even say this. One of my kale plants had passed away. I don't want to say died, passed away. And that was my fault.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, um, you'll be like, oh my God, after 3 days, like, oh my God, did I put water in that pot? In the tray. It happens. Or you might not have paid attention and noticed that leaf is getting a little brown. Let me find out what's going on here. Because usually when your leaves and your food are changing colors, that means something is happening.
Right.
Like maybe it's not getting enough oxygen. Like it could be anything, but you got to pay attention to it. And sometimes when you're just like coming back to it 3 days later, like, oh, something's going on.
Right.
So think about indoor gardening and outdoor gardening as a community.
Mm,
Still go to your supermarkets and buy. Still go to your local co-ops that support local farmers and buy. There's no such thing as totally self-sufficient because everybody has to ask somebody for food, or I'll give you some kale, or
yeah.
if you can give me some of your carrots, and that's the way it should be. So don't get it all to the self-sufficiency thing where you're anti going to the market and anti,
Right.
live your full life.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we are kind of running out of time, but I did have two more things that I wanted to get to. So I know that you mentioned off the record that you were making pickles later, which is really exciting. But in terms of just harvesting your own vegetables, what exactly do you grow? And what's the
Okay,
easiest for somebody who's just starting?
right. And I want to make it clear, I don't grow cucumbers indoors.
Okay.
Yeah, some people might have these elaborate hookups where they can grow potatoes and stuff indoors, but I'm talking about folks who have small spaces, so we want to be realistic. The first thing I always keep is kale. And it's funny, I'm going to tell on myself, I ran out of kale because I didn't plant any more seeds, and I was tearing it. I love that kale. I ate that thing to the, so I have to start over again, and this is what I mean by preparation. I feel kind of funny because I have to wait 60 to 75 days now to get a new pot of kale.
Mm, yeah.
And so, but I also feel insecure not having it.
Mm,
It's like a mental thing. Like you got to have something. I have some other things. But I mainly grow scallion because that's so easy. Kale is the number one. Sometimes I grow rosemary.
okay.
Um, what else do I have? Sometimes celery. Celery is a little difficult to grow indoors. Sometimes I'm successful. Sometimes I'm not. And I'm also getting ready to start growing some spinach, arugula, and mint.
Ooh,
I just, huh?
I want to try spinach.
Yeah. So, yeah. So little things like that. And I also do some microgreening. You ever go to the store and they sell these little,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you can do that at home easily as well.
Okay.
So those are good things, simple. But if you can't do anything else to your viewers, do that kale, grow that kale.
Okay.
That's the only
I'm
thing you got.
definitely going to be in touch with you off the record because you have me so inspired to start this journey. So we'll definitely be talking. But my last thing to you is, do you know who Tabitha Brown is? Tab Brown, Auntie
Of
Tab?
course. Of
Okay,
course.
you remind me so much of her. And so
Oh, that's
I
a
know,
compliment.
yes. And so I know that you talked about, you have this show Through the Sun, but I was wondering, are you on TikTok? Like, where can people find you other than here?
Um, my website is I'm just so sorry. Uh, Indoor Garden with Moni. I'm so sorry. Indoor Garden with Moni.
Okay.
Indoor Garden with Moni. And there you can find my Instagram. On Instagram, I'm Indoor Garden Moni. But if you go to the site, it'll take you to all there. And I push people to the website more than social media because on social media people just grab, take the
Yeah.
But the website is where I'll have the tutorials, the videos. So it's indoor growing with Moni. I'm sorry, what did I say? I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. You said Indoor Growing with Moni is your website, and then you said your
I'm
Instagram.
sorry. Indoor Garden with Moni. I'm so sorry.
It's
This is
okay.
horrible. Indoorgardenwithmoni.com.
Okay.
But yes,
Awesome.
yeah. So yes, indoorgardenwithmoni.com. And I'm just double checking. As a PR person, I see so many domains and like I get confused with mine. Yes, so it's indoorgardenwithmoni.com.
Okay, awesome. And
And
when
that's
does the
Moni
show?
spelled with an Moni.
Right, perfect. And so for those who don't know, when can they watch your show on the Sun's channel?
Okay, so I usually upload once a week and a half, because I want people to garden with me, as opposed to saying I grew and this is I have it and this is done. Then we're on to the next episode. So I've
Right.
kind of switched it up a bit. Like so last week with the scallions, this week I'm also going to show you like within 5 days they're like this tall now. They really grow fast.
I can't wait to see because, like I said, I watched your video, so I'm so excited to see what they're looking like after only 5 days.
Yeah. So if you go to indoorgardenwithmoni.com, and it's spelled with an Moni, that's where you can see the tutorials and the videos. And you can follow me on Instagram at Indoor Garden Moni. It's a brand new Instagram account that I started. You won't see the full videos there, but it'll just be a little to give you a taste.
Yeah.
And then also we also have some of those videos on the Philadelphia Sunday Sun's Facebook page.
Awesome.
At Philadelphia Sunday Sun.
Yeah.
So you can catch it there also. But the meat of everything, go to indoorgardenwithmoni.com.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
you know what I love so much about what you're doing, aside from the fact that I'm huge on sustainability and just finding new ways to kind of sustain yourself. I love how much you make it sort of a community thing, like I think that sometimes when people kind of tap into what it seems to be a life hack, they kind of continue to, or they, keep those things for themselves. And I really appreciate how, even like you said, you wanted to spread out your videos just so people can garden with you and really make it such a community thing. And the way you encourage people to support local farmers and things like that. I think sometimes people, they get a life hack and then they get so wrapped up in it and having things for themselves that they don't share the wealth. And so I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation and that you're just so giving and open about what you do and how to get people to do the same thing. So I want to commend you on that. But with that being said, that was all I had for today's episode. Is there anything that you had that you wanted to talk about before we go?
No, I think that is everything. I'm still blown away by the Tabitha Brown comment. Thank you, because I actually just interviewed her a couple of months ago. So that's why I'm just like, yeah. So Danae, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and you have a great show, and I'm just honored that you would ask me to be on here. So and I love your show, and you're doing great things, and you're always putting a spotlight on people that need it, and you're really helping a lot of people and just doing good. So I just want you to know that there's a lot of people out here that appreciate what you do, and I'm one of them. So
oh my God, thank you so much. I think that made my day because, sometimes I feel like when we do what we do, it's so easy to be like, oh, okay, like nobody watches or nobody really cares. But it's because not necessarily like an imposter syndrome sort of thing, but it's because, I love that people enjoy my stuff, but I do it really for the sake of me. And in my enjoyment. So I'm really happy that you said that. That makes my day because I'm just like, oh, nobody cares, but it's fine. So thank you for caring.
oh, you're welcome.
But on that note, make sure you guys are checking out Moni. Like she said, check out her website, check out her new Instagram, and also check her out on the Philadelphia Sunday Sun's Facebook page as well. and keep up with her. I think that there's going to be some great things kind of coming for you in your future, and I'm excited to see where you continue to take it. So maybe in a couple months we'll do another interview and see just how much it's changed since then, and maybe see the new ventures that you're kind of adapting, because it seems like you're always adding something new to your arsenal. But again, Moni, thank you so much for being here. And I also want to thank you guys, my viewers, for watching another episode of A Millennial Voice, the show. This has been amazing. Make sure you guys are checking us out at www.philistone.com as well to check out our articles. As you guys know, I write, and so do my amazing colleagues. You guys can check us out every week, Sunday again, for that, or you guys can also get us in print for only $40 a year. Again, Moni, thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to talking to you off the record.
Oh, same here. You know what? I forgot something this whole time we were talking.
Yeah.
I've also made history. I'm the only indoor gardening show in the nation that's on a major news platform. I forgot to tell you that.
Wow.
There's no other programming in the country on major news outlets, whether it be TV or online, that feature indoor gardening.
Wow.
They're all outdoor gardening. So yeah, so I'm making history in that way.
You're breaking
totally by accident, but we're proud.
Doors. That's awesome.
Okay.
And eventually, like I always say, I'm going to download a clap app for when, you know, people say really cool things like that. Dry clap. So next time I'm going to do it. But Moni, thank you so much. And
You're
I
welcome.
will be talking to you off the record.
Same here. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.